No, I'm not really into politics anymore. It's not something I generally care about. I used to be. I'll admit I used to get into a lot of political conversations with people online, and I would find myself up until 1 in the morning chugging energy drinks and soda, trying to keep up because you got to keep your energy up for those sort of things because those can last all days. But either way, I don't really follow politics anymore, and so it's kind of unusual for me to make any kind of statement, especially about a mass shooting, particularly the one in Orlando that happened on Sunday, or the early morning of Sunday, I should say. And so I thought I'd finally say something about it, and it's not going to be in regards to what a lot of people have been spouting off about, that it's some kind of false flag operation, that it's a conspiracy to take our guns, and we need to close the border, and all this other stuff. And I think one thing that really kind of angered me in the aftermath of it is before the dust really settled, before we even got a name of someone who died at this particular horrific event, people were already spouting off their political oratories about it. They're already saying, "Don't take my guns. Don't infringe on my life. Don't, you know, who cares? Don't whatever happens, make sure it doesn't happen to me." And I think there was a lot of selfishness that was kind of floating around on social media the day after. I mean, people weren't even talking about. They're rarely talking about the dead. They're talking more about what they think is going to happen, what they think they are going to lose. And to me, I I see that as kind of wrong, and it's kind of disgusting. Um, as a person who was used to be kind of selfish and self-centered, everybody wants to wonder why we keep having these sort of events in our country, and it's not because we don't have good enough gun control, or it's not because we don't have enough people armed to the teeth. It's not because we don't have stringent enough immigration policies. It's not because we're godless. It's because we just don't give a damn about each other. And it keeps cropping up day after day after day with each little event that happens in our country. Today, or I should say last night, some kid got dragged away by an alligator. And I've actually seen quite a few people saying, idiot parents, blah, 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 they deserve it, blah, blah, blah. I mean, can you just look at the fact that a kid just died and their family's going to be scarred for the rest of their life? You think they're not going to be paying for that negligence for the rest of their life? So, I mean, and so what gives you that right to wallow in their despair? And that's kind of the same thing I had about this whole Orlando thing. I mean, what gives you the right to worry about yourself and your personal vendettas when there's 49 people dead, 53 injured, possibly going to have PTSD? They're probably going to need therapy for much of their life, survivor's guilt. I mean, they may have been only injured, but that injury may linger for the rest of their lives. And there's probably dozens more who are shocked, and they might need therapy too, even though they might not have a scratch on their body. But all you care about is they're going to take my guns away. We need to close the border. I mean, what has happened? What has happened? When your personal views and your personal vendettas are the only thing you care about rather than somebody dying and getting hurt. I mean, the problem isn't the external forces of why this particular shooting happened. The problem is you. When you don't give a damn about your neighbor, when you choose to judge people, and when you choose to make these baseless assumptions, the problem can't be solved with policy. It can't be solved with a new law. It can't be solved with, a few politicians getting together in a back room and saying we need to do this. I mean, it's obviously something that's happening here, right in the heart, and right in the mind, that's something we're definitely missing. And we see it every day in our country. We see people yelling at some random food stamps person in a supermarket. I mean, what gives you that right? You don't know their story. What makes you? What gives you that right to say that? And then you have all these people making sweeping generalizations, and most of the time they're just not right. And so when people, I think people can't put their ego aside. That's when these kind of problems are breeding. And also, I think another central reason is that nobody can ever admit they're wrong, ever. And we got 314 million people in this country, and I'm sure every person in this country thinks they are right all the time, every day. Nobody's ever wrong. And so when you have that kind of ego, and you have that kind of rigidness, and that it breeds all these other problems in society, and it suddenly just creates a spectrum of just love and hate. And right now, I think our country is definitely in love with hate because it's so easy. And I know this for a fact because hating something is far easier than loving something. It always will be. And until we stop going about our days thinking that everybody's a potential terrorist, if we stop going about our days thinking and hoping that there's some kind of mass shooting so I can pull out my gun and be the hero. I mean, what kind of ridiculous fantasy is that? To walk through every day of your life thinking that some random person is just going to start shooting everybody or start killing everybody. I mean, personally, that's kind of messed up in my opinion to have that kind of fantasy. So, in a lot of ways, I just think people's disgust for one another has kind of bred this sort of contempt in our society. And we can argue and say what can happen, what can change, all we want, but in reality, until people start changing and start being dismissive and reactive and generally just a dick to each other, uh, these sort of things are going to keep happening. And I try my best to not fall into that, but I can see why people would do it. It's tantalizing, it's sexy. I mean, all of a sudden you can find yourself a part of a group when you weren't a part of a group to begin with. So I think people need to remember that we're all a part of one group, and that's the United States of America. And this division is exactly uh, what's tearing us apart because we just don't care about each other anymore. And truth be told, I mean, I'm not a big gay rights advocate, but I think it's pretty horrible what happened out there, and I don't see why most people can't accept that either. I mean, yeah, there'll be some people who normally don't support those causes. Oh, it's sad. It's in America. A whole bunch of Americans got injured, but that was only when they believed that it was some jihadist. I mean, just today or yesterday, I mean, North Carolina once again passed a ban on LGBT protections. Just a couple days after the governor said we're praying for you and we're with you. That's a real good way of showing it. But that's pretty typical in America. You say one thing one day, you never have to own up to it ever again. So